I stood there, trying to maintain my balance in an ivory dress I had borrowed from my downstairs neighbor. The fabric hugged my shoulders, the stitching was a bit rough, and the high collar seemed to constrict my breathing. I was never used to high heels, and the borrowed pair made my heels burn. I stood, lost in a magnificent room where light from crystal chandeliers shone down on white-clothed banquet tables and where sparkling wine glasses were held by New York's powerful business people. I knew, from the moment I walked in, that I didn't belong here. But the humiliation was truly exposed when Daniel, my son, stood up, raised his glass, and smiled with a practiced, ingrained grin. $10,000 a month, he said, his voice echoing, firm. That's the amount I send to my mother, so she can live comfortably, without any worries, after all the sacrifices she made for me. The applause roared. Laughter of admiration, nods of approval from men in tuxedos, from women in shimmering designer dresses. I was frozen. 10,000. I still live in an old apartment in Queens, with moldy walls and peeling ceilings. I drive an old Toyota that broke down 3 times last winter. I eat canned soup and cold bread. I work the night shift at a supermarket, stocking shelves until my back feels like it's about to break. And here, in this gilded room, I was turned into a prop, a testament to the image of a dutiful son that Daniel was putting on to shine. He placed his hand on my shoulder, a hand that seemed warm to outsiders, but felt as heavy as a shackle to me. I stood there, nailed to the spot. At 60 years old, I had learned that the deepest betrayals don't come from enemies, but from the child you once held in your arms, carried on your shoulders through the streets when he was just 5. Then I saw Olivia. She stood next to Daniel, in a form-fitting black dress with a sparkling necklace. Her smile was as slick as a blade, her eyes darting over me, devoid of pride or affection. There was only a challenge, an unspoken message. You wouldn't dare open your mouth. You'll be silent, just like you have been for years. I turned away, but my heart twisted. In that moment, I understood something. The money had never reached my hands. Not a single dollar of that $10,000 a month had ever been part of my miserable life. So where did it go? I held a glass of water in my hand, trying to swallow something bitter in my throat. It wasn't wine. I don't drink wine. The bitterness was humiliation. It was a choke. The laughter, the music, the clinking of glasses continued to ring out in the brightly lit room. But inside me, everything fell into a heavy silence. The silence that Olivia thought I would forever keep buried. But this time, I wasn't so sure I could stay silent anymore. I left the party just as the clock struck 10, walking out of the hotel lobby like a fugitive. The streetlights outside cast a patchy glow on the rain-slicked pavement. I stood waiting for the bus, my long dress snagging on my heels, feeling the cold seep from my knees to my feet. None of the people who had just applauded Daniel knew that the mother who gets $10,000 a month was huddled on the sidewalk, waiting for a cheap night bus. Back in my small Queens apartment, I flicked the light switch. The fluorescent bulb flickered twice before coming on, its cold light illuminating the cracked walls. On the table was a pile of bills. Electricity, water, gas, and a rent reminder notice. I sat down, took off my shoes, and let my feet ache. Daniel's words still echoed in my mind. $10,000 a month. I opened my old computer and logged into my bank account. The balance showed up. A few $100s left after paying my debts. There were no transfers from Daniel, no line with his name on it. I flipped through the past 6 months, a year. Nothing. I gave a bitter laugh, a choked sound. Outsiders would think how lucky I was to have such a successful, filial son. But the truth was, I still ate thin soup, still collected every coin to buy bus fare, still trembled as I calculated each bill. For 3 nights in a row, I couldn't sleep. Lying in bed, I heard the pipes dripping in the walls and the trucks driving on the street. In the darkness, I saw Olivia's face again, her smile at the party, her gaze that seemed to drown me. I remembered the words she once let slip in the kitchen when I was babysitting. Family is everything, Mom. Never do anything to shake it. At the time, I thought it was a harmless reminder. Now I understood it was a warning. Olivia would never let Daniel lose his image as a filial son. That image was a shield, a currency, a tool for them to open more doors in the financial world. And I was just a prop that needed to stay in place. I didn't cry. Tears were a luxury I had given up long ago. Instead, I took out an old notebook and wrote down date, time, words. I recorded everything: the party, the $10,000 claim, Olivia's gaze, the empty bank account. The page became a record for my memory and for the truth. Silence meant disappearing. I had been silent for too long, and I knew, to escape the lie, I had to find a trace. I started with small things: visiting the grandkids, dropping by Daniel and Olivia's house under the pretense of bringing some baked goods. I had been a mother long enough to know my son would never suspect these trivial actions. As for Olivia, she would smile politely, but coldly, and then quickly get busy with her phone or conference calls. Their house was large and shiny, everything excessively neat. But I'm used to keeping an eye out, used to memorizing things that aren't where they should be. One evening, when Olivia took the children to their after-school classes and Daniel was busy on a call on the balcony, I sat in his office. I wasn't trying to find anything big, I just glanced around. But it was the seemingly insignificant pieces of paper that revealed so much. On the desk, a checkbook was left open. Daniel's pen still left a fresh ink stain. $10,000. Written for this month, written for last month, written for the month before that. The recipient wasn't me. It wasn't Margaret Hayes at all. The recipient was written as O. Torres. I took a breath, my heart pounding as if it wanted to tear through my chest. Torres, Olivia's maiden name. The name she dropped when she married Daniel, but kept for signing things that only those in the family would understand. I took my phone out of my pocket and quickly snapped a few photos. My hand trembled so much that the photos were blurry, but the words were still clear enough. I searched more in the drawer. There was nothing but some company invoices. One name appeared multiple times: O Holdings. The logo was simple, unfamiliar. I flipped through each page: money transfers, purchases, expenses. I didn't understand everything, but a brand new company with initials that matched Olivia Hayes. I knew too well this was no coincidence. The sound of the front door opening startled me. I put everything back in its place and left the room just as Daniel walked in. He squinted at me, then smiled. "Here, Mom. Is my office a bit messy?" I smiled back, a smile I had learned after many years of patience. "No, not at all. You work so hard." That night, when I got back to my apartment in Queens, I opened my phone and looked at the pictures I had taken. 10,000. O. Torres. O. Holdings. The first piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. The next day, I told Linda, a colleague at the supermarket who I often ate lunch with. Linda was a pragmatic woman who always knew how to count every meager penny of her salary. When she saw the photos, she frowned. "You're being deceived, Margaret. This is blatant fraud. You need someone to help you." I went to see Edward Clark, an old friend from my days as an accountant. Now he was a lawyer. I placed the photos on his desk. He looked at them, tapping his finger on the surface of the desk. "This is evidence," he said. "If the money was recorded as being sent to you, but was actually transferred to his wife or a shell company, then this isn't just financial abuse within the family. It could also be tax evasion." "I'm serious. It's much more serious than you think." I nodded. I knew that. But hearing someone say it, in cold, sharp words, made me tremble. Then one day, while I was helping Olivia tidy up the living room, Rosa, their longtime housekeeper, whispered to me, "I've seen it many times. The checks with your name on them, but they were given to Olivia. You should be careful, they don't want anyone to know." I squeezed Rosa's hand. I wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in many years, I felt like I wasn't just a shadow in someone else's story. I had the truth in my hand. And the truth was starting to speak up. Olivia's text message came one evening, short and to the point. "Mom, come over for lunch tomorrow. Something I want to talk about." I went. The house was shiny, with the faint scent of orchids in the air. Olivia was already sitting in the kitchen, in a white shirt with her hair neatly tied in a bun. On the table were 2 teacups, but only one was steaming. She smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Mom, I know you've had a hard time, but sometimes silence is the best choice. Family is everything. We shouldn't do anything to shake it. Her voice was as smooth as a lawyer's. It wasn't advice, it was a warning. I placed my hand on the teacup, but didn't take a sip. Olivia, you know very well that money never reached my hands. Why? The smile on her face froze, then turned into something close to pity. Mom, don't overthink it. Daniel needs this image. And you also benefit from it, don't you? Everyone thinks you live comfortably. It's a source of pride. Pride. I almost laughed. I left without drinking a drop of tea. That night, Daniel called. His voice was rushed, with a hint of a snarl. Mom, Olivia said you're starting to ask questions. Listen, the money isn't gone anywhere. It's in a trust, a long-term investment. You don't need to worry. You just don't understand the system. I put the phone on the table and turned on the voice recorder. Daniel, I asked directly, have you ever sent me $10,000 a month like you said? There was a long silence. Then he replied, his voice lowered. Mom, you must be misremembering. It's old age. Old age. They wanted to portray me as a confused old woman, a background character to beautify their story. I ended the call and saved the recording. My heart no longer hurt as it did before. It became cold, and in that coldness, I saw clearly what I had to do. I wrote my story. No names, no addresses. Just a mother telling a story about a son who brags about providing $10,000 a month while she still has to work the night shift to pay the electricity bill. I posted it on an online forum for older adults. I didn't expect much. But after just one night, hundreds of comments flooded in. Some people told me their children also used the pretense of taking care of them to transfer money elsewhere. Some cried because they saw themselves in my story. Some sent words of encouragement, urging me not to give up. The truth began to spread. It was no longer confined to my old apartment. It became pressure, a light shining on the darkness that Daniel and Olivia had built. And I understood. This battle was no longer a private matter. This was a fight to reclaim my voice and the voice of all those who had been turned into tools for their families' lies. I went to see Catherine Moore, a lawyer specializing in financial abuse of the elderly. She sat in a small office in Brooklyn, with silver-rimmed glasses and a deep, firm voice. I placed the photos of the checkbook, the OH Holdings invoices, and the recording of the call with Daniel in front of her. Catherine looked them over, then looked up. Margaret, this is no longer a family matter. This is a financial crime, and you have the evidence in your hand. I sat still, listening to my heart pound. Part of me wanted to cry with relief. The other part felt afraid. Afraid that once the truth was exposed, it would bring everything down. But Catherine looked directly at me, her eyes shining. You have lived in silence for too long. It's time to reclaim your voice. A week later, Daniel and Olivia invited me to lunch. The table was set in the large dining room, with warm light spreading over the polished wooden table. They tried to create an intimate atmosphere, but I could see the tension in every gesture. Daniel poured wine, his voice slow. Mom, everything you see, everything you hear, it's a misunderstanding. The money is still there, just in a different form. I'm protecting you. Olivia followed, her smile strained. Family is everything. We shouldn't turn everything into a big fuss. You don't want your son to be slandered, do you? I put my glass of water on the table. My voice was soft but clear. You used my name to build a lie. The money went into Olivia's pocket, and the company was to deceive the tax authorities. You think I'm old, that I'll be silent forever. But I won't. I am no longer a shadow in your story. Daniel opened his mouth, but I held up my hand to stop him. I am the truth. I stood up, without waiting for another explanation, without looking back. Outside, the cold New York wind swept through my thin coat. I walked out onto the street, where people rushed by and traffic was heavy. But inside, for the first time in many years, I felt something I thought I had lost completely. Warmth. Not from money, and not from the admiring glances of others, but from the truth. The truth had finally been returned to me, and I knew, this time, I would never be silent again.